You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. We're going to be talking about the international schedule because that's been announced with the Future Tours program. And it's quite alarming, Gabe. The amount of cricket, the next cycle from next year to 2027, 173 test matches, 281 ODIs, and 326 T20 internationals. Compare that to this cycle, the current cycle at the moment, 151 test matches, 241 ODIs, and 301 T20 internationals. So that number is increasing year on year. Also, Gabe, for your West Indies, they do play the most T20 internationals in this cycle. They play 73 matches out of everyone else. They play the most. In terms of test matches, no surprise, England play the most, 43. And for ODIs, it's Bangladesh actually with 59. So they play the most matches combined of all the three formats with 150 as well, Bangladesh. So with the rapid rise of T20 leagues domestically, there's a lot of cricket being played and scheduled, which is quite ridiculous when you look at it, but that's what the ICC have done.
I'm going to tell you right now, unsustainable. Unsustainable. You're going to get a lot of canceled matches. You're going to get a lot of canceled matches, and you're going to get a lot of matches where we're not going to see, the top players for, pick a country, England, Australia, India. You're not going to see some of those players in there because they're playing in those domestic leagues and for their home countries, and they're again, for instance, you just saw South Africa pull out of that ODI match because we were talking about it, the ODI match with Australia, because they're trying to push their domestic league out there. So it's unsustainable. I'll tell you right now, you're gonna add matches. People are already talking about there's too much cricket, and you're gonna add matches. That's just dumb. That's just dumb. I don't know.
It is unsustainable because the current schedule as it is, the current system that they use, planning for the next 4 years, is sort of like you're sort of doing that and you're just hoping that, okay, there's no problems, but there's no break or rest, recuperation time in between series or match, because cricket touring is such a hard thing to do because it's not like other sports where you play domestically. You're touring, playing countries around the world for months on end, playing all three formats. I had this discussion with Mark from Opening Up, and I said, is there a potential mental crisis on our hands? And he said, potentially yes. But he knew some people in the ICC, and he said they're sort of thinking about it. But I don't see any plan on mental health or well-being from the ICC. I don't see any of that in terms of how they do the schedule, because you're going to see more players like Stokes, like Bolt retire or give up their contract because they can't play all three formats, and probably it's going to be the end of the three format player as we know it. Yeah. Because the ICC cricket boards just care about money. You play the series in and out, we get the money, we get paid. That's all it is. TV rights, all that stuff as well. But how do you see it, Gabe? Do you think there should be a plan for mental health and well-being? Do you think there's any strategy that the ICC have? Because it doesn't look like it with the schedule.
Okay, those are two different questions. Should there be? Yes. Does the ICC have one? No, not even a little bit. But to be fair, no. And I mean absolutely no. It's not that they don't have a plan. It's that what would the plan be? The plan would be, okay, well, let's, back up on the schedule. Let's cut back on games. Let's cut back on, and they're never going to want to do that because if you reduce games, you're reducing revenue, right? And ultimately, it's a business. So I think that they're being a little short-sighted because, yes, while you don't want to cut the amount of games because you're cutting out revenue, what you are doing is you're going to diminish the product because you're not going to have the best players out there because some of them are going to be struggling with some mental health issues. Case in point, earlier in our discussion, somebody mentioned, which I don't know to be true, I have not read that article myself, but that Virat Kohli mentioned mental health. and that him not being around his loved ones and his loved ones leaving him at some points, and you know what I mean. Like, listen, it's the last 2.5 3 years has been a strain on everyone, but specifically for these athletes that were really put up against it, they were some of the first people thrust back into the public eyesight and to compete and to try to combat these bubbles and restrictions and travel and everything that came along with it. Yeah, yeah, health is definitely an issue. I see it at school now with students. You know what I mean? Still don't haven't fully assimilated to being back in an academic environment. Uh, and I think that unfortunately, not just cricket, but all sports don't look at players as people, as humans. You know what I mean? They
They
look
sort of
at them
think they're
as
robots, and
they're commodities.
they're
They're
not.
commodities. Bottom line, you are an asset. You know what I mean? You're an asset. You're a commodity. You are our product. And they forget that there's a person behind there. You know what I mean? And a person that has already struggled with all the challenges everybody else has struggled over the last 3 years. So I can't believe they did it, but man,
It's just ridiculous because looking at it, and as cricket fans, there's so much cricket on, you can't really cover like your channel. You and Nick can't cover
right?
everything. You can't talk about every
Not even a little
series
bit.
or whatever. I
Not even a
can't
little
do
bit.
that on my channel because
Not even a little bit.
it's impossible
We
because there's
we
so
try
much
to
cricket on.
follow obviously India and Australia, West Indies, and now USA because it's going to be here. Games we can actually watch live. That's what we're trying to really venture into. But there's not enough to. There's just way too many matches, way too many teams playing, way too many leagues, and it's good that there's always cricket on. I mean, any time of year there's cricket on, basically. But at the same time, I think that it's diminished the product a little bit as we're losing some of the best players either to retirement or just to injuries. It comes to mind Jaffa Archer, right? The injury, playing all three formats, playing in the IPL and the CPL, and then he broke down. And the guy was an absolute talent. And or guys just retiring like Faf, right? Retires from international cricket, still playing in the IPL though, still playing in the BBL. I think he's BBL, right? Faf playing in the BBL, still playing in those
Yeah,
domestic
he's
leagues,
playing the BBO this year. Yeah,
making that money, but he's not playing for South Africa. He's not playing for his home country. So that's a sad thing. And you know, we saw the same thing. We didn't obviously because we weren't following cricket at the time. But yeah, look, MS Dhoni retired from international cricket long before Nick and I started watching cricket. But we saw about 2 3 seasons of MS Dhoni playing. In the IPL. I think he's may come back again this next season. So
you
you
may.
know, the reality is that uh, you're forcing players to make financial decisions, and when they are, they're gonna make the decision that it makes sense for them and their families.
Sort of like Trent Bolt in a way we discussed earlier, really,
Right.
because he made that decision. And sadly, that's the reality of it. But what they did announce, the ICC, is that more women's games are increased. 7 test
Which is
matches
good.
over the next four years, 135 ODIs and 159 T20 internationals.
That's
That's
great.
good for the women's game. I think more people would say more test matches than 7,
Right.
because that's the thing in the women's game. But that's a start. Hopefully that number keeps going up year on year. But that's good for the women's game. For the men's side of things, they play too much, whereas the women play too little.
Right.
That's the problem. How do you get women's cricket's different to men's cricket in that way because of the scheduling and how it operates and that they have a different system, different way they go about it. Sports Breakdown says here, it seems like Bangladesh and the West Indies have the most matches, but I feel mentally it will surely take a toll on these cricketers along with franchise cricket. Yes, the West Indies play 147 matches combined over the next 4 years. In front of me here, they play 26 test matches, 48 ODIs, and 73 T20s. Whereas Bangladesh, they play 150 matches combined. And that's 34 test matches, 59 ODIs, and 57 T20 nationals. So, and he also says since Bangladesh does the Bangladesh Premier League and the West Indies carry out the CPL. Yeah, I think it's just cricket boards that are money hungry, if that makes sense, Gabe. They just want money and they just want to schedule the games in so they get the
That is
profits in and make money.
that is come on. That's human nature, man. That's human nature, and you know that's all it is. You know what I mean?
It
They
is.
want the money, and they
Yeah, it's just
what do you expect? What do you expect?
yeah, you sort of expect that because they're just making money. Cricket's a money making operation, really. Sport is. Ever
Right.
since you put up a fence and charge people for tickets, it's always been about money and people get greedy. And it's the same in cricket as well. Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed our cricket discussion with Gabe from Cricket for Americans on all things the international schedule. Let us know in the comments your thoughts about the international schedule. We would love to hear what you have to say.